Okay, part two. So now we're at the situation where we're in a distance to our opponent, okay? And we're trying to set up something, okay? And not only are we trying to set something up, but we want this setup to be and this is another reason why technique won't work this way. What has to happen next has to be reflexive, okay? It cannot be thought, okay? You're not at that point in the confrontation yet, all right? It's too slow. So, this is where we set up when we're learning different things to do with the body, how to do them so habitually they are correct and not incorrect. And that is one of the most important things to understand that people don't. If you develop bad habits at this point, they will threaten to undermine everything else that you do, okay? And for that reason, there is no such thing as the basics of martial arts, okay? No such thing. Point of view, levels to the game. The more you understand how things work, even at what most people conceive of on a very base level, is the more skilled you are. And I'll explain how this applies to what we're talking about. If I'm here, one of the first things I'm going to learn about is how to use a proper guard and striking scenario reflexively. So I'm here and my opponent's here. Learning how to use quick strikes, okay, to very quickly, reflexively keep our opponent off balance, okay? You could call this a type of kazushi, okay? You can call it a type of a temewaza, okay? But the main idea here is if he's coming in, or if he's getting ready to strike, if my hand is in this position, I can strike here to the eyes, okay? I can strike here, lower to the groin. Okay? I can break his guard and hit, okay? And while I'm doing all that, if I understand a circular basis for this movement, okay, it's very easy for me to deflect. Okay? So what's happening here is if anything comes back this way as I'm doing that very quickly to stop my opponent, I don't have to shift gears. I don't have to go into a defensive mode. Rather, my hands, okay, are just coming back in the same circular movement. Some people credit Ed Parker with bringing this principle out. He did to a degree, I suppose, although he made it a lot more oriented to some things that he wanted to do. I don't particularly favor those things, but I will give him credit for that on a certain level. But here's your basic idea. If you're coming here to do this, should not be an interruption of what you're doing, okay? Nor should basic segmented movement. So for example, if I'm here and a punch is coming here, it should be relatively easy to simply move offline and continue doing what I'm doing. Some of the things that we train for to do that is not to put our hands down in this range, okay? If you're in range, you're going to quickly do something to offset what your opponent is doing, okay? You want your hands to be up in here. You don't want them out here where they can be cut. You want them so that no veins or arteries are exposed, okay? So you're here and you're able now to just work this way. The other thing about, and this is very important, you want to train your body when you do this to work independently from your legs, okay? So this is basically walking, okay? It's setting up where you can take an angle, okay? It's setting up where you can make a movement, okay? All right? And this is just having your hands in position here, okay? So that anything that happens here, you can just continue what you're doing with your legs, okay? No, it doesn't look pretty, okay? But what I'm training my body to do is to not fall into asymmetrical movement trap. Okay? What is the asymmetrical movement trap? Well, you see these guys, and they're always giving these demonstrations where both sides of the body, everything does the same thing. So somebody grabs your throat, two hands come down, two hands come up, boom. Problem with that is that movement is very predictable, and the other person is very attuned to that movement as well, because our brains have learned over evolutionary eons to process movement in that fashion, okay? So you lose the effectiveness of the technique when you rely on that to such a degree that there's a nice pattern that's very obvious, okay? How do you offset that is you teach your body how to move in asymmetrical fashion, okay? And segmented movements, okay? So in this case, what my legs are doing is fine, but I can also be using my shoulders and my hands here independently, okay? And just understanding this, I'm controlling my distance throughout an emerging conflict. And I'm not falling into this trap of stopping, okay? Things that look good in the martial arts, right? Yeah. No. Okay? Person doesn't stand still there, okay? Boom, this has to keep moving. If once you do that technique, okay, you have to have an opening for it that you set up that way, and it has to be reflexive, okay? So, first thing to understand is the value of this front hand, okay, as a fighting measure. Your fingertips, okay? This is a bone target. It's very effective. It can be very fast, okay? And this as well, not this, right here, and not this. This, okay? So for example, if you're hitting something down, okay, which brings us to when you're knocking a guard down, okay? When you're hitting a guard down, you don't want to hit with this, okay? This has no power. If you keep the integrity of your circular movement here, you're hitting with this, okay? Which you don't have to hit particularly hard, so don't worry about hurting your hand. You're not trying to break something. You're simply breaking the guard down to set up to enter, okay? And again, I can do this while I'm walking, and it can always come back to where I'm deflecting something, okay? It also leads right into my elbow, okay? So once I've done something like this, if your opponent attempts to enter, this is right here, okay? So here, I'm breaking the guard down, comes in, boom, this is here, and I can continue what I'm doing off of this elbow, including, if I have to, something with this, okay? All coming from, none of those techniques have a lot of power. They don't need to. The important thing is that they unbalance your opponent, okay? And they give you an opportunity now to do something a little bit more forceful. And initially, those can look like anything like this. These two fingers to the throat. Pow, pow. This hand, hitting with it, looks silly, right? Teaches your body one thing. It teaches your body to engage as it's doing what it's doing, okay? You don't want to lose parts of your body when you're fighting. And I don't mean that literally, but I mean mentally. So you're here, you're fighting a boxer, and I'm here, okay? Problem is that as I'm doing this, eventually I might throw a punch here. This is getting lower, and it's not protecting this in the first place, okay? You want to be aware of this, okay? This is here, okay? This is up. Okay, if something comes up, you can deflect, okay? You can move. But these are here. You're aware of them, okay? All right? So this is your initial entry, your initial point of entry, okay? Okay? Right? All right? This, okay? This, okay? That's your initial. Let's go on to the next video. We'll talk about subsequent.